Undershirt. Come on.
Mic test, 1, 2, mic test.
Are we ready?
I seen Commissioner Stites, but I think he went to the restroom.
Yeah, Commissioner Stites is here, I know.
Mhm.
I anticipate he'll be down. So we'll just go ahead and get started. It's 5 o'clock. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. When speaking, be sure to speak directly into a microphone so that all comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by noon on the day of the meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the municipal office building. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. If public comments are allowed on an agenda item, comments should be limited to the topic of that item. Disruptive comments and behavior are not permitted and may result in removal from the meeting. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for Monday, June 23rd, 2025 to order, and I'd ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Here.
Lopez,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Stites, Kane. We have an absence memo. Burrows.
Here. Thank you, committee. First point of order this evening, committee, is approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, April 22nd, 2024, and May 20th, 2024. If you've had a chance to review them, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval of the April 22nd, 2024, and May 20th, 2024 minutes. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Committee, we have three items on our agenda this evening, two items for action and one item will be information only. So our very first item up is on the agenda is the approval of an ordinance request for approval to repeal certain section of the Code of Ordinances for the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. I will recognize Casey Meyer from our legal department for presentation and remarks. Casey, welcome, and the floor is all yours.
Good evening. We are requesting your approval to repeal sections 22-187, 22-188, 22-189, 22-190 of the Unified Government Code of Ordinances. Those were originally adopted in 2006 and included various prohibitions on carrying of concealed and unconcealed firearms. In 2015, state legislation amended KSA 75-7C10, which resulted in the repeal of language that is included in those sections. So the language in those sections is currently null and void. I believe it was the intent of staff to repeal that ordinance back in 2015 when we amended the code to include a new ordinance. It appears to have just been a Scribner's error. The police department and other law enforcement agencies have not been enforcing those sections since that language was amended in the statute. And so basically, we are requesting to repeal those sections so we can clean up the code and come into compliance with state statute.
Thank you, Casey. Questions, anyone? Commissioner Lopez.
So what you're saying here is, we're trying to put it in effect that you're prohibiting concealed carry in public places? Is that what this is what I'm reading?
No, we are, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your clarification. What was your question?
Like you're prohibiting concealed carry in public, basically in public.
No. So in 2015, the state legislature passed the Personal and Family Protection Act already existed. They made several amendments in 2015, which made it unlawful for cities to pass ordinances prohibiting concealed carry in various places. And so in 2015, we amended our ordinances to reflect state statute, but we failed to repeal the ordinances that were in place prior to 2015. So those ordinances, which are these here that I'm trying to repeal now, are no longer valid.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Casey, if I understand correctly, we're just following state law.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Committee, this is an action item. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Before we go to that, Casey, it says upon publication, in the official Unified Government newspaper. That is the Echo. Is there a date certain that this will be put forward?
I don't know. Clark, do we know?
Publications are usually the following Thursday after it goes through full commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's nice to know. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And committee, I may have to back up. I failed to go to the public comment on this issue. And I believe we should have public comment if there's anyone here that wishes to speak to it. So if you'll bear with me, my apologies. Madam Clerk, I do want to back up to ensure that we give any member present here an opportunity to speak. So were there any comments received from the public?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Was anyone online from the public who wishes to make a comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone present that would care to speak to this issue? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Thank you. Thank you, committee, for your patience. Okay. Item number 2 is a resolution dealing with the development of a micro grant program. If awarded, the anticipated amount is to be $175,000 in grant funding to support and expand homeless outreach efforts within our police department. And there is no required match from the UG. The project period will span from the October 1st of 2025 to 9/30 of 2027. And I believe I'll recognize Laura Cromwell from the police department for any comments. Welcome.
Thank you. I had Laura's help with this. I'm Shanae Davis, Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. I'm the captain over community policing. We're seeking approval to apply for the federal fiscal year 25 Community Policing Development Micro Grant offered through the U.S. Department of Justice under the Office of Community Oriented Police Services. Funds awarded under the competitive grant program will assist law enforcement agencies with developing and implementing innovative community policing strategies. The police department plans to submit an application under the homelessness and squatting subcategory. If awarded, the funds will be used to expand our existing homeless outreach initiatives and will support the allocation of police resources to address issues arising from gatherings of homeless individuals. We also plan to host quarterly outreach fairs and provide homeless individuals with basic necessities and other various resources. The anticipated awarded amount is $175,000 with no match from the UG.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? It's always exciting when we see grant money with no participation required by the unified government or its budget process. We've been asking departments to get grants, and the police department's been very successful in doing so. So thank you. It's good news. Please use your microphone. Microphone.
Does the department have a grant writer? I know that grants have come in front of this several times, and I just wonder if you have somebody specifically working on that.
I will be specifically the one working on this grant submission. I don't believe we have a dedicated grant writer now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, committee? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there are any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
Is there anyone online who wishes to make a comment?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this comment? Seeing, let the record show no one stepping forward. Committee, I now entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve is submitted. Second.
Gonzalez, second.
We have a motion and a fight for the second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Committee item 3, the last item will be for information only, and it's a presentation dealing with safe streets for all SS4A Vision Zero Action Plan. This was put forward for the application in the county, and I do know that we have staff here. I do have Troy Shaw down as a person to make comments, but I don't believe that'll be the case this evening. I would ask that if you speak into the microphone, make sure the microphone is close so that we can hear it, please. So with that, floor is all yours.
Good evening, and thank you. This is Sarah Schaefer, Public Works. Troy Shaw's apologies that he wasn't able to be here this evening. But we are back for additional information for the SS4A. If you'll remember, we came 2 months ago to provide you an informational only basis and an introduction to the SS4A grant. what the unified government was awarded and how we're moving forward with that. Today, we're coming back as requested to dig a little bit deeper into the data that was gathered and where we're at with the data, what the data is going to mean and what our next steps are. So at this time, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Anthony Gallo with Kimley Horn to further move forward with our presentation. We also have Alyssa Marcy with Planning Department. We will be able to answer any questions either during or at the conclusion of the presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, this is Anthony Gallo with Kimley Horn, Consultant Project Manager for the Vision Zero plan for Wyandotte County. So I'll walk you through a quick refresh on where we are with the plan. I did present to you all about 2 months ago at this same standing committee meeting in April, provide you with an update on what we've been hearing from public and stakeholders, as well as some more detailed transportation safety analysis, some hotspot intersections and segments that we've been looking at. So again, a quick refresh on what our effort is. This Vision Zero plan is funded through the US DOT's Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So you mentioned, the external funding. This is a $960,000 federal grant, and then $240,000 coming from KDOT. And I believe, I don't believe the UG put in any, so a total $1.2 million award for this planning grant. Partnership between the UG as well as the cities of Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, and Lake Quivira, as well as numerous stakeholder groups around the county. For example, working with KCKPD, local and state police on crash reports. Ultimately, we're trying to identify the most critical transportation safety issues and locations, and then develop specific projects to address those issues. But beyond that, update internal processes within the UG, within the partner cities, and processes. An example of that would be how we can transform the UG zoning code or the capital and maintenance improvement plan process, and then ultimately set up the county and partner cities for funding. We have a steering committee that's made up of a number of groups within the UG, so 8 different groups within UG departments, as well as a number of partners from across the county. We shared this last time. This group's been pretty active. We've met multiple times with these representatives. They've given us input on some of our high crash locations, so helping us vet out some specific issues we're seeing, providing context, verifying issues that we're seeing in the field. Plan schedule. So now that we've entered summer 2025, we've gotten through a lot of what are the issues. So I'll share with you some of the issues today. And we're moving into what do we do about those issues. So prioritizing specific transportation safety projects at different locations around the county, updates to policies and processes, as I mentioned, and then getting into developing our plan with the intention of adopting the plan this fall and then having some efforts continue into early 2026. Most notably going after grant funding for design and construction of some of those projects. KDOT, again, provides a good amount, or the state of Kansas through the Build Kansas Fund provides a lot of match support for those efforts. So update on where we are with public and stakeholder engagement. Here's our project website. This has been live since the start of the project. We're up to now around 450 comments that we've received from the public. This map's not completely up to date. The general themes have been pretty consistent. Pedestrian safety is a huge concern. Speeding vehicles, a lack of crosswalks, folks feeling unsafe crossing intersections, school zones, some driver concerns as well, visibility or confusing intersections to navigate, aggressive driving, unclear signage, intersection safety, things like that. Generally, what we're seeing in our hard quantitative data from the crash data that I'll show you is aligning with what we're hearing from the general public. We also had a couple questions out in the UG community survey, which went out, I believe, in March, and then was compiled a couple months ago. So we had a question on pedestrian safety. Which of these items do we think should receive the most attention for pedestrian safety improvements? So residential neighborhoods, major intersections, and school zones were the top 3 there. And then for traffic safety improvements, which should be the highest priority locations for reducing traffic-related injuries, we heard crossings for pedestrians or improving crossings for pedestrians, better enforcement of traffic laws, and traffic calming being the highest priorities there. We did last month take our steering committee, those different stakeholder groups that I mentioned, out on a bus and walking tour, really across the entire county, looking at 12 different locations that had come up in our data analysis as crash and safety hotspots. At several of these locations, we actually got out and walked around. We had several representatives there. We had a visually impaired person and a hearing impaired person, several other representatives from KCK Fire, departments within the UG, partner cities who were there to provide a lot of context on some of the issues that we're seeing and explaining why we're seeing so many crashes and severe crashes in the crash data at these locations. Ultimately, this was a really valuable piece of feedback. We thought our participants gave us a lot of input and context on some of the needed improvements at these locations. And then in terms of ongoing and upcoming in-person efforts, so we've done several recent presentations to community groups across the county. We've also engaged in several pop-up events to raise awareness and promote Vision Zero. And we've done some literature drops throughout the county as well, promoting the comment map, raising awareness. We're generally through this first round of engagement, which is more of a information out, raising awareness, getting feedback from the public. And you can see we've gotten pretty good geographic coverage across the county. As the plan progresses over this summer and fall, we're going to have more stakeholder-focused engagement that's more education out on the importance of transportation safety and the steps the county is taking. With that, I'm going to dive into some of our data analysis findings. I am going to provide in this next section some slides that are refreshed from what I presented last time, just because there's a good amount of data contained in these, but I'll try to go through some of these pretty quickly. So this slide, as an example, is the slide I presented last time in April, just summarizing the number of crashes and breaking those out over the course of the past 10 years. So breaking crashes out by different severity types. I want you to focus where you see that blue arrow here. So on the total number of crashes in the county, if we take out the interstates, we have around 28,000 crashes over 10 years, not on the interstates. Most of those are on local streets, so not the KDOT state routes either. 150 fatalities and 537 disabling injuries not on the interstates over the past 10 years. So a high number of fatal and serious injury crashes over the past 10 years in the county. So what are the major trends that we're seeing with those fatal and serious injury crashes? And in this program, the Safe Streets and Roads for All program is focused on crashes involving fatal and serious injuries. I don't want to dismiss the fender bender type crashes, but we are specifically looking at where the most severe crashes happening, where those crashes repeatedly happening that involve someone getting injured or killed. And what we see in those crashes, we see a number of factors that show up a lot in the fatal and serious injury crashes. These aren't going to be too surprising, but I'll note that a crash can involve multiple of these or all of these potentially. So we see roadway departure, that's pretty common, a vehicle leaving the roadway. A high percentage of crashes happening at intersections. Also, we should expect that. The county is fairly urbanized. Speeding and being involved in more than a third of fatal and serious injury crashes. And then nearly 20% of the fatal and serious injury crashes involving a pedestrian or bicyclist. That's very high. The next slide I'll compare to state averages, but certainly when a pedestrian or a bicyclist is struck, you're almost always going to have at least an injury, if not a fatality. So trying to mitigate those crashes, a lot of pedestrian and bike activity in certain parts of the county. We also see a very high percentage of the fatal and serious injury crashes involving an occupant not wearing a seatbelt, younger drivers, and impairment. I'm going to skip to this next slide, which has these same percentages, but then compares these to the state average. So this column right here, so these are the percentages I just showed you. So this is the 42% of fatal and serious injury crashes in Wyandotte County involve a roadway departure. Here's the statewide average. So for some of these, you can see they trend pretty well with the state. For some of these other categories and factors, you can see the county is significantly higher than the state average. So the county being significantly higher for intersection crashes, that's not too surprising just because the county is more urbanized than most other counties in the state. But speeding being this difference in speeding, this was pretty alarming to our group. A very much higher percentage involving a vulnerable road user, meaning a bicyclist or a pedestrian. That also stood out to us. And then the unrestrained occupant one as well is, 28% of fatalities and serious injuries around the state involve not wearing a seatbelt. Well, it's 35% in Wyandotte County. So that's pretty high as well. So not only are these percentages sticking out to us just from how high they are in general, but compared to the state average, several of these are sticking out as well. I showed several of these last time. These are just heat maps of where crashes are occurring in the county. So this first one, this is just all crashes. This includes all roads in the county. It includes interstates. So it includes other roads maintained and owned by KDOT. Again, let's think about K7 or Leavenworth Road, K32. Those are not interstate highways. Those are still state highways that are owned by KDOT, but the UG has some level of responsibility and involvement with. These are facilities like K32, K7, Leavenworth Road, 7th Street, Rainbow Boulevard. Those are going to have a higher priority in the biannual KDOT local consult process. So that's happening this fall, where basically KDOT prioritizes projects at the state level. So something to keep in mind there as we think about safety projects moving forward. This next map, so this first map was all crashes. This is crashes involving an injury. So this is just taking out all the fender benders. It's still all roadways across the county. It's still pretty heavily concentrated on the interstates. I don't know if my pointers, let's see. There we go. So you can see a lot on 635, the 635 and I-70 interchange. That's this right here. You can see a lot on I-35 down here. A good amount in downtown KCK, a good amount in Rosedale as well. And then this next slide, so I went all crashes, then crashes involving an injury, and now this is just fatality and serious injury. Still all roads, so you can see a lot on the interstates. You can see we're getting narrower now with hotspots for those fatal and serious injury crashes. And if I take out the interstate highways, this is where it gets really interesting. These are the ones that we're really focused on with our project. This is so outside of I-70, outside of I-435. What's standing out here? This is those 150 fatalities and serious injuries that I mentioned earlier. So there's still, again, a number of KDOT state routes that are involved here. So K32, this is 18th Street Expressway, and then down to I-35. Here's 7th Street Rainbow Boulevard through Rosedale, and then up through downtown KCK. You can see Leavenworth Road up here, K7 over here. But then you also see Parallel Parkway, State Avenue. Those are UG owned and maintained. And downtown KCK, this is all UG owned and maintained, all in here. And then if we filter out the KDOT highways completely, so this is, let's take out K32, K7, 7th Street, 18th Street Expressway. Now you can really see these are the roads that are either maintained by the UG or maintained by Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, and Lake Quivira. And you can really see how, obviously the eastern half of the county stands out, but I don't know, to us, Parallel Parkway, State Avenue, those were really sticking out here just from a pure number of fatal and serious injury crashes. And then, parts of Central Avenue down here and downtown KCK. And then here's crashes involving a bicyclist or pedestrian. The biggest hotspots here, not surprisingly, are in downtown KCK and in Rosedale near the KU Med. But you can see we do have a good number of crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians moving further out into the more suburban portions of the county as well. So moving beyond just the heat map of where crashes are taking place, we've actually gone and looking at every major street segment or intersection in the county, actually tried to quantify and score locations based on the number of crashes taking place, the severity of those crashes, the crash rate, so the amount of exposure to traffic. So locations that are seeing more crashes with less traffic volume going through that location, that would raise a flag for, hey, wait, these two locations see the same number of crashes, but one of them sees half the amount of traffic. That's a concern, or that should be a higher priority. So combining several of these factors together, we've essentially gone and scored the segments and intersections in the county. And this is called our high injury network. This is the top scoring segments and intersections in the county. I know this map's pretty tough to read on here, but essentially anything showing up in red are the top 10% scoring. So the dots are intersections, the red is segments, or the lines are segments. So red being the top 10%, orange being 80 to 90th, and then yellow being 70 to 80th. This top 30%, the red, yellow, orange, overwhelmingly captures where most of the severe crashes are happening in the county. And on the next couple of slides, we actually have a top 10 list of what locations are scoring the highest using this metric. So again, this is looking at a combination of exposure to traffic, how severe the crashes are at a location, are there vulnerable road user crashes, like are there crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians, and just the total number of crashes. So for example, this segment right here, State Avenue between 29th and 38th, this is a location we visited on our safety tour. I can't say for sure if this has the most crashes in the county, but it's the one that's scoring the highest. And that's a combination of two fatal crashes, 5 serious injury crashes, 6 crashes involving a bicyclist or pedestrian. This number right here, 7,200, this is very low traffic volume for a 4-lane roadway. And so what you see is a lot of speeding through that area. Folks who are familiar with the area, there's a lot of driveways, a lot of folks turning in and out, nowhere to turn. So this was at the segment level was scoring the highest out of any of the segments we looked at in the county. So we are doing some accounting for the amount of traffic. We're also accounting for the segment length. So these were the top 10 scoring segments. We could certainly go and adjust our scoring a little bit, and you'd likely see some locations maybe trend up or down a little bit, but overwhelmingly, you're going to see the same locations rising to the top, no matter how you score things. And then if we look at intersections, these are the top scoring intersections in the county in our high injury network. And so again, this is a combination of just the number of crashes, how severe those crashes are there crashes involving a bicyclist and pedestrian, and just how much traffic are we seeing at this location. So for example, Southwest Boulevard and 7th Street Trafficway down in Rosedale. This might be the busiest intersection in the county. I can't say for certain there, but it's certainly carries the highest traffic volume out of all of these. So it's going to have way more crashes just by virtue of it being having the most traffic at it. But several of these other locations above it just have more severe crashes happening. So again, we've scored segments and intersections across the county. We have a full list in our data set. These are the top 10 that we're showing you all as a report out today. And then in terms of where we're going next, so I mentioned on the engagement front, we're going to be shifting from into our next round from input in to more education out. We are hoping to have a Vision Zero Summit this fall. We're pretty far along with our data analysis at this point. I do want to note we're developing some safety analysis tools for UG staff to use beyond this project and continue to score intersections and segments moving forward in the future and have those be used in project prioritization. With that kind of jumps in the next bullet of looking through how capital and maintenance projects are programmed now and how transportation safety can be factored into that. We're also going to be working with UG staff on funding and financing strategies. Ultimately, where we're getting to over the course of this fall is the development of our Vision Zero plan and adoption of that plan. The plan that'll be a roadmap for identifying, laying out those priority intersections and segments now and in the future, and then what are the specific safety strategies and actions that we're going to implement at those locations. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Sarah Schaefer, Public Works. So thank you I know that was a lot of information, a lot of data. I want us to kind of take away some key things here. One is that this project is completely funded outside of any of our UG or partnership funds. It was completely funded by the federal government and from KDOT. So that's a win for all of our particular budgets across the county. And to note that while we are digging into data, we are data nerds, the tool that comes out of this is really to help us identify capital. When we go in and we have capital improvement projects, what should we put the road back as in order to make sure that it is addressing the needs of the community for the funding that we have going into that particular right of way? So if these projects are identified, especially in areas that we're already doing work, we'd be able to come to you and say, here's how we can layer our investment to produce and deliver a project for the area that meets the criteria of anything that we're putting under the ground, as well as what we should be putting on top of the ground. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments that Alyssa and I and Anthony could answer.
Commissioner Lopez?
So basically, it's just coming down to drivers not paying attention. I mean, is what I'm looking at, unless there's a huge pothole somewhere that causes a huge wreck.
Well, driver behavior, so Sarah Schaefer, Public Works, driver behavior is very complicated, but ultimately that is one very common result of an incident. We drive the same roads every day. We get very comfortable. We get distracted. A lot of our roadways are built out, as Anthony mentioned, for a much, much larger capacity than what's actually driving on them. So when we see the traffic calming requests, it's to try to figure out how to slow some of those vehicles down, because we just kind of get in that tunnel vision and we just keep going as fast as possible without realizing it. So yes, there is that aspect of driver behavior.
Right, and I've noticed too that some of the stoplights are, they're taking longer than, it's like there's a red light and then they're waiting to go and then there's another. So it just seems like it turns green and then it just turns red like pretty fast. And things like, I've noticed that too. But other than that, like basically just people not paying attention. I don't know if the state needs to focus more on driver education more than anything, especially, there's folks on there that are texting and whatnot, which I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But at the end of the day, it's just paying attention.
And Sarah Schaefer, Public Works, driver behavior is directly the result of the design of the road. So I think if we can utilize the data to understand where design is well-placed or ill-placed, where we could do better and what that means for our drivers, we can assist in that driver behavior as well.
Yeah, you can slap a speed limit 25-mile-an-hour sign on a road, but if it looks like a highway and it's perfectly straight and it's 4 lanes wide, we're going to naturally drive faster than that because that's just what feels comfortable to them. Not they're not engaging in any sort of antisocial behavior. It's just, without even realizing, oh, I'm going 40. Oh, oops. Yeah.
Mary Gonzalez, BPU, did the data support any correlation between dedicated bike lines and, I live in the Rosedale area and we have a lot of bike lines, and I know on the boulevard lately, there's been some work and they're kind of down to 1 lane in the bike lane, and it's dangerous. If you were on a bike, I just wondered if there was correlation between any of the injuries and dedicated bike lines, or
We haven't gone into meaning like are the bike
yeah, like
fatality
just
injuries taking place
somebody riding a
at
bike.
locations where there is a dedicated bike lane?
Yes.
We have not looked into that specifically.
Okay.
I will just add though, from research outside of this, and this is not specifically for our roads, but a lot of the research shows that if you take pedestrians and cyclists out of the right of way, that they're not sharing the road with cars, that you have less likely of an instance of accident. So even if you have a painted bike lane, you're still sharing the road with the car.
Yeah.
Sarah Schaefer, Public Works, to add to Alyssa's point, if you can totally separate, of course, you're going to minimize any type of conflict because you're removing the conflict point. But by at least giving them a lane, you're reducing the conflict point because they're not trying to weave around and they're not in the actual lane of the cart path for a vehicle. So you're mitigating risk by minimizing the ability for conflict. But of course, as Alyssa said, if you can have a dedicated pedestrian mobility lane that is not motorized vehicles, meaning gasoline or electric, that's a privately owned vehicle. I'm not talking about scooters or bicycles or anything like that. But if you can remove them from the right of way, now that's not always an option. So we have to take a look at how do we mitigate the risk, because Vision Zero is not necessarily about eliminating all. It's eliminating the fatalities and the serious injury. So ideally, everything would just be property damage. That's the only thing that we would have, because we'd be reducing the conflict points of people and high vehicle connections. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Sarah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. One question, I know on your Vision Zero steering committee, you had commissioner's office. I don't recall seeing anything about this in the commissioner's office. Can you share with me, was there a questionnaire that went out or something like that?
When is the commission and elected official stakeholder meetings prepared? They're in the future, so they haven't kicked off yet per se. So great question. We do know that we need to get those on the schedule. Currently, we're just going in front of the elected bodies. Representative, we're not doing Edwardsville. The Edwardsville representative is doing Edwardsville, that type of thing. We're just getting in front of our elected bodies with the updates for the introduction and then the data. And then we'll move into the stakeholder engagement of our elected officials and of our police departments, our fire departments and things like that.
Yeah, and
So-
we have a name of a specific person who's been invited. I have to.
Yeah, we can get back with you on the
So I'm
specific.
assuming that it'll be the same way with all the school districts that are mentioned. They'll have their own representative and they'll take over the program on the school district level.
In term,
That's the county partners.
yes.
Yeah, they'd be involved in supporting us with prioritizing our recommendations and then helping to carry some of the recommendations forward. There's a lot of safe routes to school type funding that school districts can partner on.
Well, we're a society. I mean, our streets were built for cars. They weren't built for people and others. And I'm a complete streets graduate. I think I'm the only one in the state of Kansas that I know of in reference to complete streets and how to deal with pedestrians and design of the streets. And that's very important that we learn to slow things down, rebuild our intersections, utilize our public right of way properly so everyone can be engaged. And I'm really pleased to see the community partners here, including the MOXA and the other individuals that were mentioned. So kudos to you for including them. I will state I had a very terrifying incident happen 2 nights ago at 6th and Minnesota. I was headed north off of 6th Street to turn left on Minnesota, and there was 2 motorized wheelchairs coming down the middle of the street and had already got to the median to where traffic was behind me trying to turn. And had I not seen them in the street, it was that time of night, but they were out there with no lights. They were right in the middle of the road, going the wrong direction on the wrong side of the road. And heaven forbid that somebody would have ran over them or hit them. And it really set me back a little bit that they would even be utilizing our roadways in the middle of the street with motorized wheelchairs. But the sidewalks were empty. I don't know why they weren't on the sidewalks, but that could have very easily been a fatality, and I could have been involved in that, and that really set me back a little bit.
So Sarah Schaefer, Public Works. I think there needs to be some extensive education as well as discussion with our stakeholders on the policies around electric vehicles and what that actually means, or motorized vehicles. There's some ways that those are looked at as not being allowed on trails or sidewalks. But at the same time, as a electric bicycle rider who does not go very fast, is it really safe for me to be in a street where everyone's going 35 and I'm only going 10? So I think there's some definite policy discussions. Those kind of things will be coming out of our vulnerable road users as policies and processes and protocols. As Anthony mentioned, it is one of our top priorities, just to make sure that we're all on the same page of encouraging mobility in the locations that make the most sense, and then building the facilities for that mobility to keep everyone safe and able to get from place to place, as you said.
I noticed we didn't have our public utility in that group. Is there a reason why our utility wasn't in the group, our Board of Public Utilities representation? I mean, we have poles that sit right up next to a curb due to the fact that we've expanded our roadways a little bit. Some of the antiquated roadways have gotten larger, and I know we don't have, some of the curbs aren't ADA. So I'm sure all of that will come into play as we move forward to back them lights up away from the corner so that people don't hit them. Residents in wheelchairs can reach up and hit the button without being out into the street or close to the street. So I'm looking forward to the information that comes forward. Kudos to getting a grant to research all of that.
Well, thank you. And Sarah Schaefer, Public Works again. And as you expanded on that, we do have our city traffic engineer is included in there. They do oversee the signalization, the ramps, the sidewalks, those kind of things of existing assets. So they have been intimately involved in the SS4A as well as a key stakeholder. So we'll chat with them to make sure. I do believe that some of our signalization groups have been included in some conversations, which would be a part of BPU, but I'll make sure to loop back around with Chris Finger and make sure.
Great, thank you. I do hope it does address our scooters and, as you said, our electric bikes. I mean, we want to encourage all modes of transportation within and walkability and connectivity within our communities. So I would hope that we find some kind of guidance for us as commissioners on, do we put I think the lines on the street? Do we do it on the sidewalk? Where we need that clarity. But anyway, thank you so very much.
Yeah, no problem. Nationwide, they've been looking at maybe doing posted speed limits. So that way then it's obvious if you're a high-speed cyclist where you like to go 32 to 42 miles an hour because you just can rock and roll it. You've got the outfit and the helmet and the pants and do their thing. But for all of us who are just trying to get from place to place easily, maybe that's where we're able to have just a maximum speed limit on a striped space. So thank you so much for your guys's support and your attention to this evening.
Mission, any other questions? Seeing none, that if this was for information only, I do appreciate your attentiveness. Thank you for the presentation. And I would encourage us to maybe pull that out and keep it as data in our files. That is all that's come before us this evening, committee. If there's no further action, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion for adjournment. Please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, public, for joining us at the end of our evening with Public Works and Safety.